my workshop is the environmental positioning of fast fashion brands. So the goal of this workshop is really to determine if fast fashion brands are successfully positioning themselves as eco-friendly. So before starting, I would like to introduce you to my brand, Monicano Apparel, which is a sustainable swimwear brand. It is made from 75% of recycled materials. And it's a really great project that is really important to me. So for me, you know, the workshops, I used to be really shy into going into workshops when we were physically there, you know, because I like the panels, but I didn't want to be put on the spot. So I wanted to find ways to encourage you to participate. So there is not one, but two giveaways. I will be gifting a Monicano swimwear set to a participant of this workshop, plus another one to a Business Beyond Tomorrow participant. So the details for the second giveaway are on John Molson's Sustainable Enterprise Committee social media, as Olivia said, and the winners will be announced next Monday. So today's presentation. So I'm going to talk about what is fast fashion, its definition, what defines it, what makes it appealing to consumers, and I'm going to explain the overall environmental impact of the fashion industry. We'll rectify sustainable fashion's definition as well. We'll explain which actions can be taken when we are advocating for more sustainable fashion, both from a consumer's point of view to a brand owner's perspective. We're going to do a quick true or false, and we're going to do this workshop. So what is fast fashion? So to me, fast fashion really equals, you know, fast food. It is appealing, it is satisfying, it feels good for a moment, but then you wake up the next day and you feel completely bloated. Just as ready to wear is a symbol of quality, Le Devoir described fast fashion as ready to toss. And Dana Thomas, a journalist and author, said, as long as we look at clothes as disposable, we have a problem. And I think it is a big problem in today's modern society. Example of fast fashion brands that you probably know are H&M, Zara, and Forever 21. So how to describe fast fashion? Low price that leads to low cost that leads to low price and availability in volume quantities. So before there was much more production in-house and locally made, but then the globalization happened and most of the production was relocated for most brands because of cheap labor and economy of scale. What makes it so appealing to consumers? So a quick story, I really used to love fast fashion. I was a fast fashion lover. I thought I was a fashion lover, but in fact, I was just a fast fashion lover. I would go into a retail store, I would go into, let's say, H&M, I would buy my clothes and I would get out of there with an H&M bag. And I would get into Zara and I would buy other clothes, and guess what? I would get out of the store with another bag because I couldn't, you know, possibly take the bag that I already purchased and put my clothes in. I had to have two bags because I wanted to have those brands. I wanted to show that I bought from them, which is funny to me right now because these brands aren't a symbol of quality. So that was my, you know, little story. So really don't feel bad if you ever purchase from them, if you're now purchasing from them. I think we live in a world where we are conditioned to go for these brands. So it is normal. I wanted to really express myself, follow trends, and feeling accepted and having a sense of belonging. And I think that's really important for the Gen Z and millennials as well. So if we go back to the presentation, so trends renewal. Before, the clothing was a mean of determining social class. So the colors, patterns, and style really belong to each social class. Now it is accessible to almost everyone. So designer clothes are inspiring big fast fashion retailers. So people can feel on trend, because before it used to be just the elite, you know, the royalty. Um, Designer collections, when we think about the quantities, we have spring, summer, fall, winter. Sometimes we have cruise. So 4 to 5 collections a year. The number of fast fashion collections is really enormous. Nowadays, fast fashion brands produce from 12 to 20 collections per year. So you can think of it as one new collection every 2 weeks. When you go into a retail fast fashion store, there's a great window display and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you come back 3 weeks after and it changed. And you're telling yourself, oh, it's probably because, you know, they wanted to change it a bit. No, it's because they're having new collections and they want to show it. And that is crazy. So culture and social media has really created a desire that most people confuse as a need. For example, if we take TikTok, TikTok, I don't know if you know, but they they are planning to open about 300 restaurants within the US to sell dishes that were made popular on its platform. So I think thinking of that, fast fashion production is really the same thing, you know, it gets trendy, and with today's, you know, consumerism, we're having a lot of trends, and with TikTok as well, it's like a lot of trends, things going viral, and fast fashion production meets the consumer's demand. So it creates trendy clothes at a high speed. The fact that it has a cheap price point as well. So it's not only just accessible, but also cheap. And that makes a great cocktail for the millennials and Gen Z. A discounted shirt can also become an impulsive buying. So when you're buying at a retailer, fast fashion store, and you're waiting in line and you see a shirt at $5, you're like, oh, I might take it, you know, I might buy it. But then I would suggest that you think twice, because if the shirt is $5 and the company is still, you know, doing profit on this, what does that say about the wages of the people actually making the garment? So what makes it so appealing to consumers? It's trends renewal at a high speed and cheap price point. So the environmental impact of the fashion industry. So from the impact of the supply chain to the production of the garment to the end product itself and post-consumption, this is what makes fashion one of the most polluting industries in the world. If we start with waste issues, there are nearly 3/5 of all clothing that ends up in incinerators or landfills within a year of being produced. If we talk about the Burberry scandals, so there's a lot of fashion firms that comes from really luxury. So they destroyed unwanted items to prevent them from being stolen or sold cheaply. For example, Burberry, they got rid of 38 million worth merchandise in March 2018. So luxury comes with this idea that we must preserve this brand's image, and it comes with a price for the environment. When we think of waste also, it isn't just the finished product. It is also, let's say, fabric cutting that can create waste. And according to Surtex, which operates a clothing donation center and a thrift shop, we throw away 200,000 to 250,000 tons of clothes per year, only in Quebec. I interviewed one Stéphane Guérard, who is the managing director at Surtex, and he talked about smart clothes, which are traditional clothing items that contain modern technology. And he was wondering if that will turn into simple waste or electronic waste. So they don't know how they will be able to react to that, as it isn't necessarily recyclable. Water pollution and consumption. The fashion industry is the second higher user of water worldwide. The textile dyeing and finishing industry is the number one polluter of our water. And around 20 to 25% of globally produced chemical compounds are utilized within the textile finishing industry. If that is a subject that is important to you, there is the River Blue documentary, which brings awareness to the destruction of our rivers through the manufacturing of jeans. And I put it at the end of this presentation, so you'll see it later. Greenhouse gas emissions. The apparel and footwear industries are responsible for 8 to 10% of global greenhouse emissions. And that consumes alone more energy than aviation and maritime shipping combined. Deforestation. So 100 million trees are logged and turned into fabric every year. If you think of it, if placed end to end, these trees would circle our Earth's equator 7 times over. For microfibers, around 50% of our clothing is made from plastic, and up to 700,000 fibers can come off our synthetic clothes in a typical wash. As a result, if the fashion industry continues as it is, between the year 2015 and 2050, 22 million tons of microfibers will enter our ocean. Soil degradation. I'm almost done. That's a lot about the environmental impact. But yeah, the apparel supply chains are directly linked to soil degradation, the conversion of natural ecosystem, and waterway pollution. So there are a lot of chemicals that are used within the textile industries, and that does not just affect water, that affects our soul as well. I wanted to rectify sustainable fashion's definition. So there was the popularization of the environmental movement for more sustainable fashion that only began in the 2000s. So it's really new to mass consumption. If we look at the 3 terms, there is sustainable, ethical, and eco, which in French is translated as mode durable, mode éco, mode éthique. So when we think of eco, it's really associated to environment. You can also think of eco for economy, but I also think that eco should stand for ecosystem, which includes the human and animals as well in the subject. Ethical fashion is associated to both human and environmental resources. So it will focus as well on body diversity or lack of representation, the impartiality of influencers promoting brands, cultural appropriation, hypersexualization, counterfeit products, and more. So sustainable fashion is a term that is a bit trickier, since a lot of sources are arguing a different opinion. Sustainable in French is translated as durable. So durable, mode durable, durable fashion is less associated to the human resource than the quality of the product itself and its life cycle. I think that all these definitions should refer to a more ecological and responsible fashion. Because we should really consider corporate social responsibility in all definitions as well. I want to talk about the Rana Plaza. So the Rana Plaza was a clothing manufacturing factory complex that collapsed in Bangladesh on April 24th of 2013. And more than 1,000 workers died. So after that, fashion revolution started, and we started to ask on this day, every April 24th, Who Made My Clothes? It really brought awareness about workers working in sweatshops, about their working conditions. So asking your brands, your favorite brands, who made my clothes is really important, because if they don't know who made their clothes, how could you possibly know yourself? And did you know that 80% of our fashion is made by 18 to 24 years old young women all around the world? That's just like, that is insane. And we need to take responsibility for those workers, and they need to be safe producing our clothes. Which actions can be taken when we are advocating for more sustainable fashion? So as a consumer, I think it's all a matter of choice. You have to choose to be educated on a subject and making responsible decisions. I always say that one purchase equals one vote. If I don't believe in a brand's values, the way they operate, I'm not going to purchase from them. That's just not, I can't do that. Less is more. So slow fashion, really donate your clothes, wear what you already have, mend it yourself, or, ask for someone to help you to repair your clothes. Ask yourself, do you really need it? Reduce your consumption. And I'm not just talking about fashion in general. We live in today's society, and it's really consumerism all the time. And we really need to think twice. Circular economy, so secondhand, thrifted, borrowed, or swapped clothing. I put some thrift shops, some references for you, and I'm gonna share with you afterwards the PDF so that you can have access to all these links. There's also clothing rentals. You have Loup and Robe, Loup and Tux for special occasion, Station Service as well for more casual clothing, dressed. Recycling and upcycling. So what's the difference between both? Recycling is really recycling the fabric, the circular economy, but upcycling is really taking what you already have and creating something really new out of it. So that has some design involved as well. Who made my clothes? Asking the brands, like we saw for the Rana Plaza. Fast fashion isn't free. Someone somewhere is paying, and that is really true, and we really need to acknowledge that. There is no need to be perfect. You can create your own sustainable, ethical recipe according to your values and principles. I always say that with Shades of Green magazine, we always say that you need to build your own recipe, because we create articles for people to be more educated on the subject, but people can't be 100% sustainable within fashion. With what you just saw about the environmental impact, it would be it would be really difficult to do that, to achieve that. And bring your bag. There's no need for more plastic. And that is a note to my younger self. As a brand, what can you do? Which action can you do? So fabric and choice materials. Is your fabric made from renewable resources? Is it natural, biodegradable? Is it recyclable? The garments dye, the eco labels as well. I put Quebec's directory and a great source for Canada as well. You're going to have access again to those links. For production, so about 70% of a garment's impact on the climate happens during manufacturing. So for production, you have production on demand, choosing production on demand over mass production, water and energy consumption, being careful as well for the water pollution, something that is a piece that is locally made, vegan and cruelty-free. Well, in regards to ecological purposes, I don't really think that vegan necessarily is more sustainable. It really is a matter of choice at the end of the day, again. Factory workers and conditions and wages. So fair trade, Fair trade is an eco label which fights for fair wages, the respect for human rights, safe environment, and prohibition of child labor. Shipping and transport. Increase the use of sustainable transport using recycled and lighter materials for packaging. Point of sale and head office, so waste reduction, so reducing carbon emission by increasing energy efficiency and switching to renewable energy in the supply chain. You also can include the garment's life cycle in your product development by extending it, so creating timeless pieces that are both functional and durable, or offering a rather circular than linear life cycle by offering repurposing, recycling programs. Aligning your brand with a cause as well is a great idea. Just as for a consumer, you know, if I told you that it was important to create your own ethical recipe, and that was the main point. Well, for the brand owner, it's really, for me, it's transparency, because it's a great way to prevent consumers to think that your brand takes part in greenwashing. So greenwashing gives brands a misleading image of ecological responsibility, and fashion is among the worst offenders of greenwashing. So it's the fashion industry, therefore, the brand's responsibility to educate the consumers. So a quick true or false. The nature of a brand's environmental actions directly affects their success. So I don't know if you guys want to like comment. This is not the workshop, but if you want to comment on the, you know, on the comment section, do you think this is true? Do you think this is false? You can open your mics. True, false, true.
I'm just a little confused by the format of the question. Is there
Yeah.
a way to rephrase it a little bit just so I can understand what perspective it is?
Okay, so it is based on the research that I have done. So it was 9 different environmental actions, and people were rating, you know, their how much it was important to them, and then it was all about the brands as well. So we kind of merged that, and the question is really to know if, let's say, a brand is doing eco packaging versus another brand is doing I don't know, another sustainable environmental action, like, is it going to affect their success? The success of their action is like, is it going to lead to a purchase from the consumer?
Okay, so it's because of what they do,
Yes.
determines their success. Okay, then I stand.
Like the difference between, you know, like, is it really different, the eco packaging versus the use of biological cotton, let's say. So people saying false, true, 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 false. Okay, perfect. So from my research, it was false, because according to my research, the interest towards environmental actions is both similar and high. So the recurring answer in my survey was 4 out of 4 for 9 different environmental actions. So people are interested, and they are, you know, interested in the same amount for all these different environmental actions. But it takes more than just the difference between actions for it to transpose into the final act of buying. There's a lot of other factors. There is the budget, there is the client's knowledge about sustainable fashion, there's the consumer behaviors, and more. And in fact, 60% of the consumers in my survey confirmed they didn't know fashion brands that are establishing environmental actions. Out of 9 different environmental actions, the one that had the biggest percentage of high interest, which was 68%, was the sustainable recyclable packaging. And I think that is really surprising, considering it has nothing to do with the production of the garment itself, you know? So what are the other factors? So my research have shown that the right brand positioning within the fashion industry leads to consumers' credibility, and then you get more, there's more chances for it to transpose into a purchase. So let's do the workshop. How does a brand's positioning affects the credibility of their environmental actions? So I put 5 brands into the here. So you have Stella McCartney, you have H&M, you have Zara, Laurie-Han Hébert, and Frank & Oak. There was a lot more. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're hearing that, there's the police there. But yeah, so there's 5 brands, but there were more brands in my research. I just didn't include them because there were more local designer brands that I didn't know if you would know yourself. So first, I want you to place those 5 brands into the quadrant of positioning that I'm going to show in the next slide. And then, assuming these 5 brands are all communicating sustainable fashion practices, I want you to rank their credibility according to your knowledge. So their credibility towards their environmental action. So let's say H&M is like, oh, we're eco-conscious, we're doing that. And Laurie-Han Hébert, Frank & Oak, Zara, and Stella McCartney are saying the same thing. Which brand you're going to give your credibility to the most? And so the quadrant is showing brands from established to newer and from fast fashion to high-end brands. So I put, for example, Monicano, which I introduced to you at the beginning of this workshop. I put it there because before the workshop, because it wasn't a part of my research, but I put it there just to show you guys how to put the brands. So Monicano is a recent brand. It was founded in 2018, and it's more on the high-end side because it's locally handmade here in Montreal with quality fabrics that are imported from Italy, and 75% of recycled plastic. So this is how you put it together. And so I'm gonna let you guys be in break rooms and kind of see where you want to position those 5 brands and rank their credibility. So the results of my research are this here. So Stella McCartney is established as high-end. It was created back in 2001. Frank & Oak is a newer fast fashion brand, was created in 2012, and H&M, Laurie-Han Hébert, and Zara were all created between the late 1920s and 1980s. So they are established as fast fashion brands. For the consumer's credibility, so Stella McCartney and Frank & Oak had great credibility. Laurie-Han Hébert and Zara had bad credibility, and H&M, it was kind of tied, it was mixed opinions in regards to their credibility. So I want to know for, the people in the break rooms, what was it, did it look like this for you? You guys can comment, but I'm gonna continue with the results of the conclusion of this research. So we can conclude by saying that the brands that have great credibility are high-end, either established or newer, or fast fashion brands that are newer, and brands that had bad or mixed opinions in regards to their credibility were established as fast fashion. I think, when you're a fast fashion brand, your business model just isn't sustainable. I mean, it isn't environmental. It's based, like we said, on volume, quantities, and low costs. And so when they are saying, they are doing environmental actions, people are just being like, well, are you really doing it because you want it or because it's a trend? I don't like saying that it's a trend, but some people, some brands, big corporation, they see it as a trend. Rather than when you're a newer fast fashion brand, then I think that you have more, there's more space, for you to shape your brand. Let's say Frank and Oak, they can found themselves, they can launch, and then after that, a couple years later, they can already install some environmental actions and then be taken more seriously. So during this research, we also asked which brands would be hypothetically more believable in order to identify their trust factors. So the brand would be younger, more expensive, and would possess eco-labels. So if you want to go further on your own and see if those consumers from my survey were right about those brands, there is the Good On You website. I believe that it also is an app, and it rates brands according to 3 factors. So people, planet, and animals. And all of those 5 brands, they're within Good On You. I also added 2 documentaries, which are a great introduction to the subject as well. I talked about River Blue earlier, about the jean production and water pollution, and the true cost. Just, I think it has been seen by everyone within the fashion industry. It is a great documentary as well. So I want you to stay in touch. I have LinkedIn, I put my email address, my websites. I didn't talk a lot about Shades of Green, but it is an online ethical fashion magazine. It was founded back in 2017. And so if you guys have any questions, if you want to talk, I'm going to be there at the virtual networking event. So that is it for me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laurie. I know we're kind of running out of time, but there were some comments in the chat. Some people were saying that they had put Frank and Oak in high-end and established, and then discussed that Stella McCartney has a huge contract with Adidas, which is a fast fashion company.
Yeah. Well, Stella McCartney really is pioneer, really. We can think of Patagonia as well. Stella McCartney is really within the sustainable fashion. She's one of the designers that is more recognized for that. And Frank and Oak, I would say it's not high-end. It's fast fashion still. There are a lot of garments that are made. I don't know. It's just not made locally. There are a lot of brands that are within Montreal that we think, they are producing here, but they're not. That's why they're saying designed in Montreal and not produced in Montreal. And there's a difference between those two.
Yeah. Cool. Did anyone else have any quick comments or anything they wanted to add? Don't think so. No. But I wanted to say a big thank you again, Laurie. I think it was super interesting. Even myself, that's a topic I've always wanted to learn more about, and I've been trying to learn more. And I learned a lot of things just by listening to you.